A river blocking bet is a small bet made on the river to see a cheap showdown. Usually you do it when you have something like top pair, maybe a bad kicker, but you think you still have the best hand and you'd really like to see showdown so you can win the pot. Let's go through a hand example to show the strength, the power of a blocking bet. We'll be seated in the big blind. Our villain is in the cutoff. Let's say he raises pre-flop. It folds to us and we call with Jack 10. The board comes out 10, 7, 6, 2, 2. We'll forget or just fast forward through the pre-river action for the purpose of the example. But the pot on the river is 500. We're out of position, first to act. We have two options. We can check, which might be our instinct since our hand is marginal, or we can bet. And I don't think a bet can be called a value bet because it's just top pair with weak kicker on a straight potential and full house potential board. Let's go through what happens when we check first. Let's think of hands that are just have us beat all the way that our opponent might have. He could have 8-9, or maybe very small percent of the time a full house. He flopped a set of 7s or 6s. I think usually we don't even get to the river. If he flops a set, we probably cut loose on the flop of the turn. So this is a small part of his range. But of course, if we check to him and he has these hands, he's going to bet. He's also, unfortunately, going to bet a certain percent of the time complete bluffs. This is really bad news for us. When he makes a big river bet to our check, we're left guessing whether he has a monster or a complete bluff. It's a really bad position for us to be in, but it's only half the story as to why a check is a bad choice on this river. Think about the hands that he has that he might have called with had we bet, but he's just going to check behind. Hands that are worse than ours. Hands like 10 with a worse kicker, any 7, any 6. He's going to check these back, which is dreadful for us. We're going to miss out on a potential to get value on the river from hands that are worse than ours. So let's swing over now to the betting side, the blocking bet. Let's say we stick in 150 chips into a pot of 500. It's about 30% of the pot. A normal river bet might be between half and 1 times the pot, so this will definitely look small to our opponent. Let's think about what it's going to do to his river actions now. Well, if he has ace 8-9, I actually think he still calls here. He knows that if he puts in a big raise, he's only going to get called by a full house, and he's going to fold out hands like Jack 10, so there's really no value in him raising us. So good news, we get a call out of a hand that crushes us. We lost 150, but let's keep going. Let's look at all the benefits that the blocking bet gives us. If he has 10x, any 7, or any 6, I think along with 8-9, he calls with all these hands. So whereas he was just checking back when we checked to him with hands worse than us, he now is all of a sudden paying us off. You might be thinking, well, what if he has a 10 with a better kicker? What's so cool about the blocking bet is he's probably not comfortable enough to raise us with a better 10. He's just going to call the 150. So we're actually saving money with the blocking bet in this case. Imagine if we had just put a half-size river bet in. So 50% of the pot, 250 chips. If he already had a better 10 than us, he's just going to call, and we're going to have lost 100 chips that we didn't need to. So let's review all the good things that this blocking bet accomplished. First, it removed bluffs from our opponent's river betting range. It also captured value on hands that our opponent has that are worse. Instead of him just checking back, he now called a 150 chip bet. And finally, it actually saved us money when our opponent had a better top pair hand. If you're playing against an astute opponent who's paying attention, you have to make sure that occasionally, when you do have a great hand, like ace 10 in this situation, or ace 2, or the straight yourself that sometimes you bet small. Sometimes you bet around 25 to 30% of the pot on the river to give you balance, so that when you do make a blocking bet, it could just as well be a strong hand.